You're on your own.
What? Oh.
All right.
Me?
Show on. No.
Okay.
All right, so thank you. Welcome thanks for coming. For those that came over, don't feel well. Those are here prepared, that's cool too. So this is the 5th installment of Rethinking the Paths to Success. This is the first one where the speaker actually follows a traditional path. She got a degree here and went on. I'll cover that here in a second. Usually, these have been students who started in Inver and then go do something really radically different. We had a student who spent a year in Antarctica. One of our students actually did get his degree and then became a stand-up comic. Mike Early was voted best new stand-up in Minnesota about 3 years ago. So then we had a couple others, just students done the same thing, done different things outside of the norm, and usually because, as you would imagine, philosophy. Because philosophy has a way of, if it works, changing what you think about life, right? So with that, I am going to introduce our speaker, Samantha A.
You can call me by my real last name if you want. That's not my name.
I guess I don't know your real last name.
Also, I do.
I guess I can. It's been a long time. Anyway, let me introduce Samantha. Samantha Alsati. Thank you. She had her associates in the spring of 2011 from Inver Hills. She went on to finish her degree, her bachelor's at the University of Minnesota. She graduated the U of M in December of 2013 with a BS Environmental Science. She then transferred to law school at William Mitchell, which is now Mitchell Hamlin, right? Where she graduated magna cum laude, which is, right, top 10, is that what we decided?
Top 20.
Top 20, which in law school, by the way, not a lot of slackers in law school, so let's just kind of keep that in mind. She sat, I want you to explain that to me. You said you sat for the bar exam in July 2017. Can you explain that a little bit real quick?
So you sit for the bar exam, but in order to sit, you have to pass like certain criteria, basically extensive background checks, and then they have to decide if you're ethically okay to sit also.
So how'd you get through that?
Told the truth. And then you sit, and then whether you pass or fail. You can only sit for the bar if you've finished law school. It's just the phrase I think used for taking the exam.
So you can't take the bar unless you've gone to law school?
In Minnesota.
In Minnesota.
I think in Wisconsin you can take the bar exam without law school.
Interesting. Yeah, so different states.
Yeah, but that's the odd state. Most states are you have to go through law school, pass law school, then sit. Interesting.
I learned something new. Anyway, so carrying on. So she passed the bar in October, right?
Yeah.
And then was officially sworn in November 14, 2017. She clerked for a Hennepin County judge until she graduated in June of this year, and then made the decision to move to private practice, where she is now at Ernstad and Reamer. Ernstad and Reamer, practicing civil defense. And sworn to the federal bar of Minnesota in August of this year. So with that, can I get a round of applause? Thank you. So just know we are filming. We'll upload it to YouTube. We're also streaming live on Facebook because, 21st century, yo. Join us. So let's get started. So what were you doing before you came to Inver?
So immediately before Inver, I was living in San Diego, California. I was married to someone in the military, and that marriage ended. And so I naturally wanted to come back home and restart my life. So I moved back to Minnesota December of 2010, and then started up at Inver that spring semester, sometime in January of 2011.
And why Inver? Just location, or?
No, to be honest, I was in community colleges pretty much since I graduated high school, which was 2006. And I was like part-time in community college, so I was trying to live the married spouse military life. And I came back home and thought that the U of M wouldn't let me transfer my California credits to the U's, I don't know, programming. Once I was in the U, I found out that I did not have to even come to Inver. So I basically graduated the U of M with enough credits for 2 degrees, but all like in the same area.
I was just telling some people about that. I was like, don't worry about your credits. I graduated the same way with way more credits than I needed. Yeah. Take the stuff you're interested in and worry about let it play itself out as it goes. But, anyway. Yeah. So you literally there was no need to come to Inver whatsoever.
No, but at the time I thought there was. And I was very, I was young, so I got married at 18, and I was going through a divorce right about when I turned 22. And so I was very young and had like no kind of guidance as to how to do life now. That totally flipped my world upside down. So I was trying to like get back in school, because school is what I know how to do. School is my thing. It keeps me kind of stable and steady.
Don't hear that very often.
So I did not need to come here, but I'm glad I did.
And that's my next question. Why? What is it about Inver that you remember?
I always really liked community colleges because of the smaller classrooms and because you could interact with the professors at the U. I mean, I did like the U because it was in line. I was in a program that I liked. I'm an environmental tree-hugging person, so I liked those classes a lot. But I didn't like the larger settings, and I don't like large campuses, so I liked being here at Inver. I remember his class very well. I remember like kind of being frustrated with my own thoughts because, learning about all the philosophers and what they think about the world and getting frustrated with that and aligning it with how I view the world. And then I also took some kind of communication class here that really helped me with public speaking. We had to sit in front of cameras like over and over again, which is not my favorite thing to do, but
we got them all over now.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you that your experience of philosophy, just kind of in general. Particularly, I suppose, my courses. What course did you have for me again?
I think you said, I think it was environmental ethics.
I think so. That's what we got talking about. Yeah.
Pretty sure it would have been, because I will always take anything environmental than something. So that's probably why I signed up for the class. I was honestly just trying to enroll to have credits that were applicable to transfer to the U, because I knew that I wanted an environmental science degree. At that point in time, I had no idea like what I wanted to do with it, but I did go to an environmental high school. I don't know if any of you've heard of the School of Environmental Studies in Apple Valley. It's the best high school there is.
And I'll give a shout out to them. I've had multiple students from there, and they've always been pretty good students. So they do crank out some, at least ready to take on whatever's being said. So,
yeah.
At a different level, yeah. Well, since we're kind of on this, U versus Inver, what are kind of the biggest differences in classes? You mentioned kind of size, but what about like content and stuff like that? Or how it's
like compared to like the university?
Yeah, like university courses compared to like community college courses. We usually get to ask that question in this because most of the people I bring back didn't go to university.
So the university courses are more about, I think, getting work done as opposed to learning the work, to be honest. I mean, it depends on what kind of classes you take. If you're there, that's why, still to this day, I mentor like middle school kids, and I always tell them like, you don't need to think about going to the university. You don't need to think about big schools. Like the community schools, I think, are really good for a lot of people to kind of figure out their lives and get to learn what they want to do, instead of going to a class at the U that's 300 plus students and you interact with like a TA, a teacher's assistant. You never really interact with the professor. So that I did have a couple classes like that, because I had some science classes that were very, very large. But then once I got more down my degree, because it was a smaller, like less people really were going for that degree. My class, yeah. Those were smaller, but they were all trying to prepare you for the next step, which was either go get a job or go on to get your PhD or something like that.
And just to give away the game, that's kind of what I do. I treat you as though you're going to get PhDs, right? So that's the level. And I am. I'm dead serious. That's the way I kind of hold what I'm doing is setting you up for like grad school, just to kind of give that away since she set that up. So, see, things are starting to make sense now, right? No. So what made you decide to want to go to law school? How about it?
I was taking a class at the U of M, and the professor there actually she's now the lawyer for the DNR, like the head lawyer for the DNR, but she was teaching at the U of M. I saw it. She had a law degree, and at that point in my life, I felt like very frustrated with how we have these environmental problems. They conflict with how humans interact with the environment, and the only thing like that can get anything done is if we change the laws. So I was very inspired and hopeful and thinking that if I went to law school and got a law degree, then I can attack the system from the inside.
And do you still feel that way?
Honestly, not in the last 2 years, no.
Do you want to expand on that, or?
I've become very less optimistic because of how few people in politics can drastically affect millions of other people and the environment. So I've kind of like let go of the idea that one person can really make a difference, which is sad to say because I used to really believe that. But the last 2 years have drastically changed my opinion on that.
And do you think that's because of your experience in law? Is that?
Law definitely, law school was hard mentally for me because I really do think one of the last things you asked me, I really don't believe in the world like most people believe in the world. I don't think humans are superior to anything. I love humans, I love people, but I also don't think that they're better than, say, a deer out there.
Deer.
I don't see a reason why that we are superior. So I don't think that it's okay for people to act like they're superior. But most people in law school would go to law school with the idea of like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to graduate and I'm going to get in a firm and I'm going to make tons of money. And it was all very like selfish. I want to make money, make money, make money. I grew up extremely poor. I had no money in my family. Money has never existed like for me. So being in an environment where everyone was just so focused on money and that defining their success was very hard mentally for me.
That's interesting. Well, while we're there, what is you want to expand on that background a little bit, your youth?
Yeah, so I'm half Palestinian, and my dad came to America when he was 18 and met my mom a few years later. She's American. She also has some Native American in her. So my mom grew up very poor. My dad, as an immigrant, came over here with nothing, so also very poor. And their marriage wasn't the greatest. And so I ended up dropping out of high school, actually, in my sophomore year. I didn't earn a single high school credit.
Really?
Should I ask?
Well, I'll take questions in a little bit.
Okay. So I didn't earn a single sophomore year credit of high school. And luckily I had a really good friend. My lifelong best friend at the time was trying to get me back to go to school because, like I said earlier, school's kind of been my thing that keeps me stable in life. It's
interesting you say that since you were a dropout, right? Those seem like contradictory kind of statements, right?
Yeah. I was going through a lot at that time. I experienced some personal things. I had my family life. My parents were going through a divorce. So I did end up going back to school my junior year, and then had to go to night school and summer school in order to graduate on time, which I did. And that's when I went to the School of Environmental Studies. So that was kind of my saving school.
Yeah,
which is probably why I'm the sweet spot for it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good reason, right? Well, since we're on to the personal stuff, what's your general sense of your, overall academic experience, right? Which is to say, we kind of talked about this already a little bit. What was it that you saw in academics originally that inspired you to like continue? Because we've kind of already mentioned, you mentioned how you've been kind of disillusioned, but I'm going to blame law school for that and hope that academics can maybe still be a saving grace.
I think it was because I knew how to do it. I knew how to do school. I liked to learn. I liked new topics. I still like to learn. I'm still taking community ed courses because, like I said, I like school. So even though I'm done and have like millions of dollars of debt, I'm still just enrolling myself in community colleges, like
Awesome.
little.
What are you taking right now?
I was taking a Spanish 2 class, but I've stepped away from that to be like a big brother, big sister right now. So we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get a little bit more personal. Music. You know me and music. What's your favorite music?
Well, it depends on what my mood is. When I'm studying, I listen to classical music with absolutely no words, and I really like that. When I'm driving my car, I listen to like rap music. My last concert I went to was the Brother Ali concert a couple weeks ago. I don't know if any of you heard of him, but I really like that kind of more not as popular mainstream music. And then I love 80s music. Queen and Billy Joel. Like I listen to 80s love songs at home with my dogs all the time.
I had your last concert you just went to, so you're answering.
Yeah, it was a good concert. He was at First Avenue. I've seen him 3 times, I think. I went to the 90s R&B hip hop concert at I don't know, somewhere in downtown. I have a variety of music. The only thing I don't like is I guess I would say really hick sounding country, which is probably an inappropriate way to say that.
Hick sounding country. Yeah, you're right. You're still. Oh, we'll get back to that. Okay, if not law, if you hadn't gone down law, what profession would you have chose?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I was thinking about that. I like to teach, so I might have done that, but I don't actually think I would. But I love work with the environment. I love to be outdoors, so maybe some kind of actual earth scientist, I would have done that. But I really, at the time I was at the U of M, saw this vision for me of being something big. I had a goal, and I still do. I want to work either for the EPA or Earth Justice as one of their lawyers, and hopefully be a part of enacting some laws or involved in lawsuits that are really meaningful. But so I don't know what I would have done. Well, I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was at the U of M. I just knew I loved environmental science, I love animals, I love nature, and I just wanted to be somewhere in there.
Well, right, let's be honest, that's what the philosopher's been saying, right? Do what's true to you, right?
Yeah.
Everything works out, right? So, of course, learning what's true to you, that's always the key. Since we're on the topic, what is your take on the DNR?
The Minnesota DNR?
Yeah. I know what my take is, and I'll let you.
Their clients are hunters and fishers. That's their take. That's who they work for. That's my personal opinion. It does not represent anything else but my personal opinion.
And how's that working out?
I don't think it's working out that great. Hunters and fishers obviously have certain things that they want from the environment, and people that value the environment for just aesthetics or for wanting to keep it there for future generations or whatever it may be, it doesn't align with the hunters and fishers' desires for it. It also doesn't align with just straight up diversity in the environment.
But it seems like that's why I agree with that. I think that the DNR has committed itself to that. But it also seems like the hunters and fishers would be open to more diversity just for the ability of things to hunt, for lack of a better term. I mean, right?
Maybe.
Although I
I've
understand.
never hunted, so.
Well, I understand the deer argument, right? So we manage Minnesota for deer, in case you're not aware of that. Deer and ducks, that seems to be what we basically manage for. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So we kill wolves because they kill deer. That seems absurd to me. You said deer when you mentioned, I think deer's. Rats with horns is what I think they are, but maybe rats are equal to humans too.
I like rats.
Probably smarter than deer, I'll tell you that. Anyway, But I mean, yeah, I see. That was kind of what I wanted to start teasing out was these issues that Minnesota's environment and how it's run, and that's where I thought you might have some good things to say too, in the sense that I'm kind of surprised with it. On
Sorry.
well, no, I mean that's it. But just where that DNR sits, where our legal structure of the environment sits, is it helping Minnesota? Is it hurting Minnesota? Which I think is a live question. We're gonna have Jeff Forrest. You remember Jeff, right? The Forrest, the fire guy. It was way back in the day. It was a long time. We're gonna have him back because he's the one to talk about the fuel loads and the fires and what's going on. Is because we mismanage the forest, we have fire issues.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it depends on what you're saying. If it works, is it working now? Maybe. Is it working for the next 10 years? Perhaps. Is it sustainable long term? And then you have to define what is long term. And that's where I personally think, no, it's not sustainable. I don't like that we kind of, as a state and as our cultures, we only see the maximum furthest way we look into the future is our next generation. So like if I had children, my children, and then that's where kind of humans' ability to think beyond that just kind of stops.
is it our ability or our desire?
Probably our desire. Because if we thought further than that, I think we would have to change what we do as people.
And that's, ethics, while you're thinking about it, that's this idea of do we have, and you're going to say yes, of course, do we have a duty to future generations, right? I mean, that's another kind of that's that philosophical dark question, right? Is there an actual, do we have a duty to care about the environment? Because if we don't,
Right.
I mean, that's that kind of, yeah. But let's jump on the back. Let's take down the scale of what I have this question of your I know you're dedicated to social justice is 10. I know that already. But how would you define social justice? I think it's one of those terms that gets thrown around, and people, social justice. Well, what does that look like? What do you think it looks like? You're the one that practices law.
Well, for me, it's, it can look at like a lot of different things. It could be you're out there going to marches and, part of those like social justice groups and doing what those group organized kind of events are to make change happen in the world. It could look like that. It could look like, I think what I like to do is kind of take it on more personally and spread like my knowledge and views and try to help others. I really have a soft spot for helping kind of troubled kids because I think I grew up with some troubles, and so I try to be someone for them that I wish I had as a child. And that to me is the way that I think like I'm acting on like this idea of social justice, because a lot of those kids don't have the things in place to lead them down a healthy life path, and that is not just, when those kids that grow up with very traumatic family lives, they don't have anyone there to kind of push them along to show them what they're capable of, and they don't end up in the greatest positions in life, and then it just kind of is this domino effect. And so I like to take it on more personally and interact with people more on a one-on-one level to try and make change that way.
I can admire that. What's your take on the homeless? It's been, I find this interesting. I'm gonna take a side note here on the situation going on now in Minneapolis with the homeless camp and the moving in, and some people not wanting to move, and I understand those arguments. And
my take on it, it's really sad that we just walk every day amongst these people that don't have a place to live. They're just people. That's my take on it, is they're just people like just trying to get by. Like maybe they did make a lot of mistakes in their lives. Okay. Does that mean that they're not entitled to warmth and shelter and food and a little bit of happiness? That's kind of how I think about it. I really think, I also, while in law school, worked at the appellate public defender's office.
I should know better than that.
Yeah. So I was working for people, my clients were prisoners that were appealing their sentence or trying to correct their sentence. And, a lot of people ask, like, how can you do that? How can you be defending these people? They've, some of them have committed rape, some of them have committed murder, some of them, robbed tons of people. And I get it, because prior to law school, I felt that way. But eventually changed my view and just really believe that law and justice is for everyone, and you can't just say that because you made a terrible mistake or 20 terrible mistakes that you're not entitled to the same rights that we as a country have said you're entitled to.
So I find it interesting. You say going into law school, you kind of held that position that.
Yeah, like before I went to law school, because I knew someone before law school that was a public defender, and I remember thinking like, never ever could I ever stand up for someone that's done such a horrible crime. And then I got into law school, and my work at the appellate PD's office was probably my most rewarding work I've ever done, and I loved it. Like I would go there. It was unpaid too, because that's how internships are, free labor. But I would go there wanting to be there and wanting to stay and wanting to finish my assignments because I felt like I was doing a good thing.
Interesting. I think people, I know some people went to law and it's almost the exact opposite experience. Right?
Yeah.
They went in ready to, help everybody, and after they got through law school, like, nope.
Yeah. No, I went to law school. While I was at the U of M, I got in a really, really bad car accident. I was rear-ended by some woman texting on her phone, and I had to go through that whole lawsuit experience. And at that time, I'd never even thought about law as a career. But I remember going to my deposition and being involved with all the lawyers and thinking, like, this is just awful. Like, these people are awful. The lawyers are awful. This woman's awful. And now I'm on the other side. I'm practicing civil defense, so I'm being that exact awful person that I thought years ago existed. And I think law, like, really changed my perspective, but probably in the opposite way. It changed other people's perspective. Now I look at it like there's a lot of frivolous lawsuits out there, a lot of unnecessary disputes, wasting the court's time and people's time. And
we live in a litigious society.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's get kind of even darker. Tell us something. I love this question. Tell us something you believe is true that almost no one agrees with you about.
Well, I think I did when I said I don't think humans are superior to anything.
I agree with that, though. So.
Okay.
I think lots of people agree with that, actually. I think that was a cutting edge, dark argument, 100 years ago.
Okay.
I think today there's more on it.
Well, I believe there's aliens, but I think a lot of people think that. Something I believe in. Really?
Yeah.
We could be the only planet with life.
We could be the only life in the universe. There could be multiple universes.
Yeah.
But we'll never know because it's not a universe.
I don't think we're the only life in the universe. Not at all.
Should we open it up to the floor?
I'm trying to think of something I believe is true that no one else. I don't know. I know my views are kind of on the outskirts, but I think there's more people that are joining me over in the outskirts of things.
We could talk about Palestine.
Oh, yeah. Sure, we can talk about that. I am Palestinian, so obviously I believe Palestinians should have a right to life peacefully and land peacefully. I don't necessarily believe that land can be owned by anyone per se, but that.
Okay, now there is a controversial statement, I would say, right?
Okay.
I don't think many people. I don't think anybody here would be like, what else did you just say? That's now I would argue that's a radical claim. The idea that ownership of land should be eliminated.
I don't think it should be eliminated. I understand why it works structurally for a society to be able to have a piece of property and build a house on it or whatever you want and then claim it as yours so that nobody else can come in and do as they please with it. Makes total sense for a society. I get it. However, I don't believe that because I own said piece of land that I have the sole authority to decide what I want to do with that piece of land. Because I think about what that, when I die or when whatever, something happens, if I move away, what did I do to that land? Why now does it look like a piece of dump and I've killed everything on it, Well,
plus if a river runs through it, just because a river runs through it doesn't mean you can dump everything, right? So
yeah.
No, I think we're on general agreement about that too. I just think that statement of not owning land. That's because I would argue. I think I agree with that on principle.
So that is on an individual level, but as I don't like the idea of these borders, these like, I mean, and I get that they work. You're a country, you have to have borders, you have to define where you are and stuff. But I don't like how it's become this like, this is mine, these are who we are here south of the border, and this is who we are there south of the border. I'm very much a like, we're humans. Like, can we just live in this world together and function like that? Can we stop being so like fighting each other on everything? Maybe just for a moment, we should just stop.
There's a lot of money in fighting each other.
There is. And that's also, you know, you asked me about the homeless, and I think it's really, really disgusting how much money we throw into these wars on whatever else, but we can't feed our homeless when a lot of our homeless are military vets. I mean, not that you have to be entitled to rights because you were a vet, but I mean, it just seems so like, I don't understand how anyone can look at that situation and be like, no, this is okay. They can fight for our country that we dump thousands into, but then when they're done and they're obviously in need of some kind of support, no, we're not going to help them. And now they're just going to live in these tents and go down this terrible path.
Well, that's how we treat life in general here, right? We love it when it comes out, and then once it's on, and once you're out, you're on your own.
Yeah,
right?
that is definitely, yeah. I don't think anyone in the world that claims they're pro-life or pro-life. I think they're all pro-birth.
It's definitely not pro-life, because you can't be pro-life while you're killing life. So yeah, that's always problematic. But
that's a whole other topic.
That is a whole other topic. Okay, so that's good. Let's. I saw some questions. I got some other questions too, but let's kind of open it up a little bit and we'll start over here since you had a question earlier.
You mentioned that you wanted laws changed in regards to the environment. Like specifically, what types of laws? Like what laws would you change?
That's a good question.
Yeah. You know, really, I think of more federal laws. Because I think a lot of states, once federal laws are in place, have to kind of follow or choose to follow. I would put a lot of more restrictions on how we get our energy, where we put our subsidies for energy. I mean, the reason why oil is so, you know, economically like A-okay is because we subsidize it to death. It's not sustainable. It's not financially sustainable for our country, but because we give it all these subsidies and it looks like it is compared to other alternative forms of energy.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your view on what's happening in Germany, where they pretty much are starting to like fully go, they're trying to fully go over to sustainable energy, and they're like having, I believe it's brownouts. I'm not very good.
Well, one thing we got to kind of keep in mind. I think I mentioned this kind of before. You know, we have to always keep in mind that Germany and the U.S. are very different places, right? Germany is very small compared to us, right? So for Germany to be sustainable and the U.S. to be sustainable, I think are radically different kind of positions, if that makes sense. That said, I mean, yeah, Costa Rica, Germany, lots of countries are heading in that direction. I think maybe we can rephrase the question is how could we do here legally to help promote that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think legally we could put more restrictions on how we get our oil, the methods that we extract the oil, and then how much subsidies we give to these oil companies. And maybe we should just think about giving a little bit to, say, the wind industry or the water industry that's producing the energy. That I think would change the structure of things. If things became more financially affordable or looked financially better in the eyes of the public, then I think more people would be in line with that. But right now everyone's saying, well, oil is cheaper. It's more economically like better for me as a person if we keep oil going, because my bills will go through the roof if I have to pay for this alternative energy.
Well, that seems to bring us back full circle to that sense of, responsibility to the future. Because the responsibility lies in the future, it can't be limited by the cost in the moment, right? We should be, if we paid, we mentioned this before, the sense if we paid for the actual cost of our goods, the environmental damage, the blah, 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 and most people can afford anything.
Yeah.
But that puts us in an interesting position, right? It's kind of, where do we go with that?
Yeah.
Did you want to? Yeah, go ahead. No, you with the hat.
You said I support restrictions on energy. but then you're also saying, just before that, you think, you kind of pull borders as far as this is a specific area, we shouldn't be able to cross that, or you think we should, you're saying that you think we should be able to cross kind of in any direction. But if we've got, our country has restrictions on individuals coming to this country, why aren't we enforcing that versus kind of like just free borders reign? Because then wouldn't that kind of put the country in would be taxed in other ways, not taxed, but it would be very difficult to support all these people coming in already.
So
as opposed to even taking care of the ones that are already.
So is your question, why do I feel that like the borders?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused as to how there's support in one direction, which kind of contradicts the other way.
So let me answer and then tell me if I'm answering the right question. The idea of these borders that we should not allow people in and out, I don't support, period. I think everyone should be entitled to the opportunity to move about the world in general. I'm not just talking about the US, I'm saying like everywhere. And I don't believe that because you were born here, you're not allowed to go here. I don't think that that's how life should be. I also, in terms of like the energy situation, rivers flow through multiple countries. The oceans touch, I can't even count how many countries in one side of the ocean. It's things like that that support my belief that we need to be able to work better with each other, even though if we live here and there's someone here and someone here, we're all interconnected. The air itself is everywhere. Just because we're polluting here in the US doesn't mean that people over in Germany aren't gonna, feel that. And that's why I think my idea of how borders should be more of a welcoming, like we are all humans existing on this floating rock together. We should try and be more community working. I don't think politics is about working with community, though. Politics is about money and power and, growth in the immediate future, which is why I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the current politics. So did that explain what your confusion?
Well, I guess, there are processes in place that our country is welcoming to people that follow the processes. And I guess, how could you have an open border? We don't have a giant gate or fence along the border for Canada. There's also not the same type of migrations and immigrations coming from that direction.
So
you do know there's been a decline in immigration over the last 10 years in Mexico. There's been actually more people going to Mexico than coming from Mexico. So it seems like that undermines the argument in general. We don't have an issue. It seems like, if anything, the issue is there's a lot of rhetoric about the issue, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence to support the issue. That seems to be the...
I just don't, my issue with people having an issue with people coming in is, what are you afraid of these people are going to bring into this nation? What
we don't already have.
Yeah, really. The statistics show that immigrants themselves don't commit higher crimes than citizens. They actually commit significantly less because they're trying to not get in trouble with the law and get themselves kicked out of the country. I understand that there's this idea that like they're taking our jobs. Okay, well, if you want to go and clean out toilets for a living at $2 an hour, by all means, help yourself to that. Those are the jobs that these people are doing. That I don't understand what the fear is of immigrants coming. And obviously I come from a biased position. My dad did come here legally, but I have family members that are in Mexico. I have family members that are in the Middle East. I have family members that are in Canada. I have family members all over the world. And so I have a biased position for sure, but I just think that humans are humans. And just because you're from one area doesn't mean you're going to do any wrong in another area. So my question to you is, what is it that you're afraid of if we don't, lock down the borders?
I'm not saying I'm afraid of anything per se. I'm saying that we already have laws and regulations to grant people citizenship to the country. And if we don't follow those, then what are we even there for? Why
Well, I mean,
are we
that-
putting laws and regulations in place?
But there's laws and regulations in place all over in every field of life. And every day people break them. I break laws every day. I speed, for sure. I park where I'm not supposed to park all the time. I mean, there's
Shh, this is live.
people, I mean, you're not supposed to throw away electronics in the traditional trash bin, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happening living in an apartment. There's all kinds of stuff in there. That's against the law. I mean, there's things that people break every day that are in place for the protections of the general public. Why is it that this one area of coming to the US is so much of a difference than all the other areas that people break laws in?
And if we didn't have borders, there wouldn't be an issue of having to follow procedures. So.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have the laws, the borders.
Well, we wouldn't have borders to protect. That'd be kind of the point, right? So, but if there's no borders to protect, you don't need laws to protect them. So. And I mean, I'll just throw in my 2 cents. Borders are an antiquated view of existence. We don't live in that world. We don't live in the 16th century anymore, right? We don't live in a world where kingdoms necessarily exist. It's a one world order, right? I got friends in China I can talk to right now. We don't live in that same world. The borders don't exist in a very real sense in many different ways. If anything, there's physical borders. And that's a really fascinating thing. And this is where I think I agree with Samantha, is this sense that we're okay with open intellectual borders, mental borders. We don't like physical. We don't want physical. I find that to be contradictory on its face. We have no problem with people communicating, but we don't want them
goods.
or bringing goods or whatever. Yeah, but the idea that you can just freely travel, right? That seems to be a hangover from days where, right, we didn't live in that world. And since travel and those things are so easy now, why continue to live under, right, this old antiquated way? I mean, I think in the future there will be less borders. So, but it gets worse before it gets better, right? So, did I say? Yeah.
So your undergraduate degree is in environmental sciences?
Yeah, the long title is Environmental Science Policy and Management.
Okay. And then your degree in law school, is it just?
So when you go to law school, you just get a JD. My plan is to eventually get into a master's of law, which then you can go for 1 more year and you just focus on one area of law. I'm not doing that now because once you have a master's of law, you become kind of unmarketable because you're expected to be paid more. And since I'm a new to law, I don't want to have a master's and then try to get an entry-level job because they won't want to pay me that level.
And what is your 10-year plan? Where would you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years from now, I either want to be working for like a nonprofit environmental group, or I want to have that be like my side pro bono work that I do. I haven't yet. I used to think that that's what I need to do as my career and make my passion my career. And I did work for a nonprofit environmental group while in law school. And because I'm so passionate about it, it became really tolling on me to be just kind of surrounded by this negative stuff, how I viewed it very negative. And I'm still tossing with the idea in my head, like, can I handle this as a career? Or is this something that I need to do pro bono on the side because I care about it and like it, but I can't mentally make it be my full-time thing?
And can you talk about those conflicts that you had in law school when you were realizing that environmental sciences really kind of give the low end of the stick when it comes to
Yeah.
right.
So my very first semester of law school, your first year of law school, you're with the exact same, probably 50 students every class for a whole year. So you get to know each other really well. It was probably like a month into law school, and I'm in a torts class, which is just kind of like general mishaps that take place in the world. And we were discussing a landowner's duty as a landowner, funny thing, to fill in a gopher hole if you have a gopher hole on your property. Because, say for instance, if your property is near a school or a public place of interest, people might be walking across your property and they could trip in the hole and injure themselves. So everyone in class, probably a classroom like this size, is debating and talking and tossing ideas off, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? So I raised my hand and I'm like, what about the gopher? And everyone just like turned and looked at me. I'm like, I'm serious. Like, why don't we think about the land? I mean, you're just going to bury them in on both sides? And so we got into this long talk about that and how the law really doesn't say anything about what we should do in terms of things besides people. I mean, there is now intellectual property laws, and there are environmental laws, and there are other things like that the law does touch on, but it's not the base of what law is. And that's when I really like hit me that I was sitting in a class with people that weren't environmental thinkers. And then, just discussions, after class, go and have a drink or go into a study group or whatever, and everyone talking about what they want to do, and everyone wanted to go to a firm and make their way up to partnership and make all this money, and money's never been a driver for me. I mean, obviously I need it. I need to pay my bills. I mean, it's stressful when I have random expenses come that I wasn't prepared for, but it's not my goal. I don't look to that. And it really, became kind of uneasy to be like, these are my peers and these are the people that are going to be the next generation practicing, and they're all just so focused on the dollar sign, and that made me pretty sad.
So we got a question from Facebook about, I know, right? 21st century, man, I'm telling you, on what you think about felony voting rights.
Oh,
'Cause that's a hot topic. Right?
Yeah. Well, I am proud of Florida for what they just passed. They reinstated the rights for felons to vote. I believe they did what we have in place, where it's once you're done with your sentence, your rights to vote are they're back. They're there.
But all states are that way.
No. I think that felons should have the right to vote. I mean, my idea of prison and jail is not it should not be this is where we're going to be permanently. It should be more of how are we going to rehab this person and help this person to get back into society and be a positive person in society. So why would we, well, first we don't do that, but we should. And if we did, why should they not have the right to vote? Again, they did a wrong or two or three or whatever, but they're still living in this state or country or whatever.
But I mean, theoretically, right? If the whole point of a felony charge, right, is that.
Well, what felony? I mean, a drug felony,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, right? There's a big difference between murdering a family of 6 and selling a pound of marijuana.
But when you do such like horrible, disgusting crimes like that, you're probably not going to be out. You know what I mean?
I'd like to believe you.
And, I know, do I think that every person sitting in prison is like equal? No, I think there's some like really shitty people in there, and we should probably just keep them there for some time until they can, if possible, get through things and fix themselves. But there's also a lot of people in prison that are there for the wrong reasons. You can be in prison because you made a mistake after mistake after mistake, lots of tiny ones, but too bad, so sad. Yeah, I mean, it's sad.
Which I see Trump's getting ready to do away with that 3 strikes law. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, things come from strange places. Because that is a terrible law. 3 strikes law is just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's California still, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
So when do you think that, like in regards to prisoners, when does making mistakes turn to making choices? So when does somebody choose to do wrong versus making a mistake?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. When is it a conscious choice where the person acknowledges like this is a wrong act, but I'm going to do it anyways? And when is it a product of the situation and their lives and their everything else that they've been surrounded with? I don't know. What I do know is that as someone that practices law, I believe that everyone's entitled to the rights that the law grants them. So even if you murdered a family of 6, you're still entitled to have an attorney and have your rights in place and be treated like a human being. yes, you did a horrible, disgusting thing, and you probably did that by choice, because that's not a accident situation. But I still think that everyone's entitled to have the protections that the laws say they should have. I don't honestly know when it is a person's choice as opposed to when it's more of a product of what has happened to them.
Yeah, so that's, just in case we're not paying attention, there's an interesting issue out there right now. If you're a naturalist and you buy into the evolutionary theory and the idea of how the brains develop and how the environment plays into that, it becomes questionable just where we are actually in control. I mean, where are we responsible for what we believe, right? If you're raised to believe X, are you responsible for disbelieving that if it's wrong? I mean, that's a very problematic issue in law, and particularly in criminal justice, right? Because that challenges what we think about. It's interesting. Some philosophers talked about this naturalistic issue, and they had a guy there that had been in the prison system or something. I forget what he did, and he was like, for years I just assumed you committed a crime, you're responsible for it. He goes, but what you guys are saying is right. If what you guys are saying about the brain is correct, I'm not really sure what we're doing when we say you're responsible in the way we usually think of responsibility. So
yeah, I mean it is a really complicated question that I don't know honestly, and I wish I knew.
Yeah, they're gonna answer. I'd like to say we're not gonna answer that question here anytime soon. So did you want to go ahead? Wait, did I say hand? At least they're fighting for.
Yeah.
You have next.
My question is more about environmental problems. So my daughter is 13 right now, and we focus a lot on the environment, and more specifically plastic being something that as an individual you can control. One question is, have you been to Como Zoo in the last year?
No, because I have a very hard time going to zoos mentally for me. Yeah.
They do currently have an art project that they've had an artist who made sculptures out of the plastics that were found on the ocean, on the beaches, and modeled it into artwork for the kids to understand how much is really being found in flip-flops and the 13-minute plastic bag that was used and the Fiji water that you drink that costs billions in environmental damage. How do you see your position maybe in impacting that part of it?
So when I was in undergrad, I was really all about like the individual taking steps to leave less of a footprint on the earth, and I still am. But I have sort of expanded on that idea, in that I believe that it should be up to the corporations and the companies taking the big steps, and that will trickle down to the consumer. And then, I'm not saying that we should just be careless in what we do, but I think the responsibility lies in the ones that have the most power and how they shape what happens in our country and our world. So I think it should be up to corporations changing the way they do things, and then up to the people doing things on their own level to create change. And I think like projects like that, it's something that kids like need to see. I mean, when I was at the School of Environmental Studies, I did go to the Yucatan Peninsula to do an environmental cleanup after one of the hurricanes. And I mean, it's life-changing to see what that looks like, and to see that there's people, just innocent people living life that are living in that. And, if kids aren't exposed to those things, how are they ever supposed to know if they care? How are they supposed to decide if they care about something if they're not exposed to it?
So real quick, we'll take a little pause for a second. If you have a class you need to go to at noon, go ahead and take the next few minutes. You guys, I know some people have to leave. Otherwise, if you want to stick around, we're going to keep the conversation going. I got a couple of interesting questions on Facebook here. But we'll go ahead and let people that need to leave, and then we'll start back up. So did you see what's going on here?
No.
All kinds of questions. Are you responsible for what one believes, but not responsible for how one behaves? Oh, Brad, I know.
Are you responsible? What? For what one believes we're not responsible.
And so I think those things are linked. I think Brett misunderstands me fundamentally. Your beliefs are framed, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
guy I always see arguing.
Brett, yeah.
No.
Oh, Isaac?
Yeah, he's
Isaac's great. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Isaac's a good student. So, we'll let this kind of clear out, and then
Yeah.
because people that stay are the ones you want to talk to.
Okay.
It is. That's the way it goes.
Well, we have class, you know.
Some might have class.
Yeah.
I bet you it's 50-50.
Probably.
All right. As my professor used to say when he played these games, now the real students are left in class. All right, so we'll keep us carrying on for at least a little bit here. So, did you want to ask something up there, Adam, or are you just stretching? You're just stretching? Go ahead.
The common view of lawyers, louder here, it's not.
Yeah.
I go.
Common view of lawyers is that after you get done with work, you go take candies from Davies and
Yeah, it's
They'll
pretty
shield.
negative. Yeah.
how has your view changed actually being a lawyer and have met other lawyers?
Yeah. There are still some of those type of lawyers out there, but I think that's just a product of them being human, and there's humans like that in all fields. I know lots of great people that are lawyers and that have, positive things to offer the world and just so happen to do law to pay their bills. So I think that's changed because, like I said, when I was at the U and I got in that car accident, I was nothing but pissed off at the world and angry at both sides, both lawyers, my lawyer and the other person's lawyer. And I thought that lawyers were awful and that they really just were chasing money. And that is what I saw. But I think there is a change happening in the field and more people are going to law for other reasons, which makes me happy and hopeful. But there are people out there that still go to work 10 hours straight and are just very corporate, make the money kind of people. I just don't associate myself with those people.
Ambulance chasers, as they say.
Yeah.
I had a question as we were talking about the borders and we were talking about, be able to move and stuff. I'm kind of curious what you think about that island off of India. You know about that, right? Where the guy went to spread Christianity and got killed by the locals.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just want to go ahead and record this. I find this to be fascinating how, they should like this, how we have this sense that we're treating it like a zoo. And we're treating that island like a zoo. There's this group of people that live there that we want to see them live in their own little world kind of thing and take this hands-off approach as though somehow they're on a different planet than we are. And then we stop them from going there. And then when people go there, they kill people, but we don't go prosecute them for killing people. I find that if a wolf did that, we'd hunt the wolf down and shoot the freaking thing.
Mm-hmm.
If a bear did it, we'd hunt the bear down and shoot it. But we let these humans get away with killing somebody? I find that to be fascinating, and I would love to hear your.
Well, I don't know if any country governs that.
India.
India does.
Yes, it's
Okay.
India's law that makes it legal.
So I've only saw the tiny bit of it, so I could be completely off with what I'm saying. But from my understanding, this missionary person wanted to go and spread the word of God, and there's my number one problem. I don't think people should be teaching others about their personal beliefs unless that person asks you, what do you think about the world? What do you think about the afterlife?
But I have to slow down there. So this is where my background sometimes haunts me. My background in Christianity, Jesus only really said two things. Really, love God and go tell people to love God. So, there's kind of a sense in which being Christian is bound up with that. And so it seems, and I understand this. This is an interesting issue, right? Because there's a way in which being Christian involves spreading the word.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you, right?
Well, I'm not Christian.
No, I understand. I'm not saying you have to spread the word.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but that's an interesting, because it seems like we become,
Yeah.
it's just one religion till another one kind of thing.
It is. That's why I think religion all across the board needs to be hands off. We just need to believe what we believe and practice what we practice. And if it's good and loving and positive, then great. And if not, then we should probably rethink that. But so that's my first problem with that, is that this guy was going there to try and spread the word of God, and why? You know, like why? Just leave them alone.
I mean, I think this is a fascinating issue. I mean, we're getting a little, this is kind of outside the wheelhouse a little bit, but I find this to be, I've been thinking a ton about this because, I mean, I'm not Christian either. I'm not religious really in any way, shape, or form, but I mean, I understand that that's the essence of Christianity. I mean,
I mean, I think it's the essence of a lot of religions.
well, I mean, not necessarily, you know, Judaism doesn't really have that. Even Islam doesn't really have that. And that sense of actually being part of like, I'm only telling you two things: love God and go out and tell people to love God. I mean, that's it. Everything else is I can add it on to it. So there's a way in which, on one side of the coin, I see that as the most Christian thing out there in that sense of spreading the word. I understand. I guess I get it, right? I get his desire, if you will. And anywhere else he can do that, China maybe aside, without getting killed. But he gets killed here, and we turn a blind. I just find that to be
like the latter part, where we turn a blind eye to it, I find very interesting also.
Maybe that's the most interesting part, right? It's just that.
Yeah. And I don't know why India wouldn't do anything. I mean.
Well, I did a little research on this, and what they do is here's what they say. They actually are charging the people that took him with like assisted homicide or something like that, reckless endangerment, something like that, right? For taking him there in the first place, because that was illegal. That was an illegal act. And they'll prosecute them because they're in India. They can do that. And they charge the people that killed them with murder. But then they turn around and say, but there's no way for us to ever know who did it. There's no way for us to really prosecute them, so we're not going to really. So they have actually literally been charged, but they're not going to do anything on it because they don't have any way of. And plus that would mean going on the island, breaking their own law, and they're kind of caught in this weird contradiction.
Yeah, I mean, how can they find out who actually did it if their own laws say they can't go there?
So, but, yeah.
But my understanding is India has a relationship with that island, and in the past
Well, they own it.
has had a relationship with them, has made an agreement with them that they'll protect them, and that culture, that tribe has decided they don't want to be involved with the rest of society. And so,
But that's Texas.
India set up laws, many laws, to protect that island and allow those individuals to live as they choose on their own property. So it's almost like stand your ground law in Florida.
Another good one, yeah.
This is their island. You know you can't go there. You go in their front door by bursting in because you can, and you get shot. Sucks to be you.
But I want to spin this back around to the conversation we were having about borders, because I was leaning towards the no border argument, which would include theirs. Right? That's what I'm kind of trying to. That's my nasty way of sneaking it around.
And I mean, it's interesting because if you think about it, if as an individual you just went out to the Amazon or somewhere and sat down and were like, "This is mine. I'm gonna stay here." But now nobody interact with me. I'm gonna act like I live in this world without anyone else. I mean, would we allow that? Would we allow that person to just do as they please? If it's just one person doing as they please on an island or anywhere, are we going to allow it if there's now 5 people doing it? Now, are we going to allow it if there's this whole tribe doing it? I mean, it's like where and why is it okay? And you know, I don't know.
I mean, I do. I think it feels like a zoo to me. And my hatred for zoos, I think, applies to that island in the same way. I mean, it's I don't know. I should back up and say, you know, I was in a class once where I asked this kind of question. Are you saying that if there's people living on an island somewhere, I was like in the Amazon, there's somebody in the Amazon we've never contacted, you're saying join the 21st century, get run over? And the response was, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And at the time I thought, oh, that's because I was kind of a hippy-dippy, try to save the planet kind of person too. But thanks to, you know, the more thinking about these things and the more critical issues about it, it seems like, well, we're in a weird space. I mean, preserving something simply to preserve it seems just as problematic as forcing them into the 21st century, so to speak. So
But that beach is their front door.
well, but I mean, where do we draw the lines? We're right back to the question he was. I mean, you know, you can say that to the Mexicans, you can say that to the Canadians. This is our front. I mean, so and I'm back to that kind of pushing that border thing. I think there's an interesting. I think that is the future. I really do. I think this is one of those last refuges of something we're seeing that's fading, if you will. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. I actually read somewhere, and it said that when it comes to that island, if outsiders go there, the outsiders can actually make them sick because they're so detached from
Absolutely.
So I kind of just thought, what would happen if that Christian went there and like a massive amount of them got sick? How would that be viewed, or what would that be done?
It'd be just like America. Oh wait. No, yeah, I mean that's a really legit question. But again, this is kind of we're preserving. What are we preserving? What exactly is going on there? I guess that's kind of what I'm asking is what are we preserving exactly? And what do we draw? Why that and not like she was saying some other in there? So it gets. I mean, there's nothing easy. We're not going to answer the question, of course. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that hit me.
I mean, so I think about that. Like you say, what are we preserving in terms of that island and that culture? And I ask that question when it comes to old text religious books. Why? Why are we following that? Why are we bringing something that happened supposedly who knows how many years ago into today's world?
Well, the argument is, right, we stand on the backs of giants, right? So there's reason, there's things were necessary. That's the argument. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying those are the arguments we hold, right? Is that we need to understand those movements so we can see how we got from A to B, so to speak.
Yeah,
Right?
so maybe that's the same argument that island.
But how do we, I mean, what do we, I don't understand how, in the text, I can go read the text. On the island, it's just this island, I have no way of knowing what's going on there. I have no way of, how does it influence, does that make sense? Like the old scriptures remain because they still influence the world.
But if their world and their mind is just that island.
But that's not their planet, right? So
Well, it's not anyone's planet.
exactly, and so that's the kind of that same. I just again, it's very. I find it very confusing. I guess in my way. I just found I was kind of shocked to find out just how I'd heard about it before, but I never really thought about it much
Yeah.
until the guy got killed, and I started doing some research on it. It was like, wow. So, did you want to?
Yeah, so from everything that I've read and found out about the island, basically there are really only three possibilities that are going to happen to those people in the long term. Either they're going to get with the rest of us, somebody important's going to crash there, and they'll go and kill everybody or save that person, or
Somebody important's going to crash.
So,
I'm sorry, that second one was brilliant because I was just like, that's like Escape from New York kind of stuff right there, right? The president's going to crash on the island, and damn it, we're going in to get him. And
So why do you think that they, as a society, will all die naturally? I mean,
those are just the three possibilities.
but like, do you think the society is gonna die?
Just people.
Probably inbreeding, I mean, there's no genetic variance.
yeah, I mean, that would be that's.
Eventually, they are just all going to die. They're,
Well, are we all?
But I think what he's arguing is that the way that society is set up,
it's going to
Yeah.
happen a lot faster.
that those are the only three
Yeah.
possibilities that can happen.
Yeah.
I think that's
Why-
fair. Yeah,
Why should we really care about this?
yeah, because in the long term, if I understand what you're saying, in the long term, game's already over.
You
Yeah.
with us or die.
Well, so that is the argument that a lot of people say for the endangered species. The ones that are not able to sustain themselves unless humans like actively breed them in zoos to keep them alive.
It is a zoo. See, I knew it was a zoo.
That's what a lot of people argue, and as much as like it hurts my heart to like say it, I agree that there are species right now that are alive that are only alive because we as people have like actively kept them alive. And why would we do that? They're not, I mean, the cheetahs are not sustainable at all. They all are within like 1% genetic difference. If one flux in the world changes, that whole species will die. And that's kind of what you're saying about this island and this culture of people.
We could apply it to food too. We have the same genetic
Yeah.
issues in food. But.
Yeah.
Did I see another hand before you? Did you want to? Okay, go ahead.
Another question I have with endangered animals, what would be your view of animals that were endangered but now aren't? Like animals that we've brought back.
Well, I mean, it's like, where are they on the list? There are animals that enter the endangered species list, and then because of active efforts, they become off of that, which is great. And they still maintain their genetic diversity, and they can thrive in the natural world without people actively forcing them to breed and forcing them to a new location and such. Then there's animals that are on that list that the only reason why they're alive is because we're breeding them in zoos, we're moving them to new locations, their genetic diversity is next to none. And if the world changed by half a degree of temperature, they would die. Like the whole species would die.
Did you want to go ahead?
Well, in a sense, we're intervening in evolution, and that's okay.
What do you mean by we're intervening? How do we? I mean, are we always intervening in evolution? I mean, can we? How can we not?
If not for intervening, these species will go extinct.
Yeah.
This island of individuals will go extinct. Areas in Africa that are struggling with sort of poverty and hunger, those individuals will go extinct. That's our entire evolution through as far, if we keep looking back, everyone that's come before us, that's how our world is churned. That's how it works. And now we're saying that's not okay. We're putting how others would our own opinions and our own thoughts of how these people should live, or our own ideals upon them, saying, well, this is unacceptable.
So
where does that become? Where does that line drawn?
well, there's a key difference between different species of animals and a culture tribe of people. Although they could get sick if mingled with the rest of society. It's at what point are they like a different species? And right now, as far as I know, they could still breed with us here in America. And then that's why we're still the same species. And that's why people in Africa that are suffering they're still humans, they're still Homo sapiens. So it's a little different when it's, species of completely different animals, and as opposed to humans that we all are able to breed with each other. So we're all in the same kind of pot.
But why? Why is there a difference? We're animals, and if you don't want to separate between the human beings being superior, then we're all kind of a melting pot of the same creature. Not obviously different, but we're all equal. So in that case, how are you separating the two?
I'm unclear. What do you mean by separating the two?
Am I mistaken? Is they just separate animal creatures from human beings?
No.
Like humans are one basket of things, and polar bears are another, and cheetahs are another, and the bumblebee is another. This island of people that we're talking about, they're in the same bundle as us.
They're still human. Yeah.
That's what I'm
So
trying
if they go extinct, it won't be humans going extinct. It'll just be this particular group of humans going extinct. So you can't call it extinct. All we can say is they're dead.
Is what you're saying that we should kind of treat different cultures the same way we do, like animals going extinct?
No, my initial question is where do we stop? Is it okay? Is it A-okay, or where do we stop intervening in what would be the evolution of things coming and going in a very large sense, whether it be a specific breed of animal or human beings or this culture or that culture? Where is that? Or is there no line there?
Are you saying it's okay to let a poor community in Africa go extinct?
No, what I'm saying is if without our intervention, what would happen?
That intervention is from us. It's from the government. It's not those people living in that situation who caused it. Those are the poor, unfortunate souls who were born into that situation.
Sure.
It is our responsibility as members of the same species to support and take care of other human beings.
Why?
Why? Because it's our species. They're equal to us. We are equal to them. Because of your birthplace, it should not identify whether or not you have the right to enjoy the sunshine and to breathe air and to live a happy life. You have no choice of where you're born. Those children born into that poverty, that's not their fault. Their skin color wasn't their choice. The governments of Africa who have created that environment, that have stifled those people who are hurting and starving and dying, that is something globally we should all be offended by.
But we should correct. I wouldn't say that's the African governments. I would say those are the governments that went in from Dutch
Right.
and British and
That have
Spain.
taken over and conquered and then brought back.
Because we're the ones that put those powers in place. They didn't, right? That's
These people aren't horribly suffering because of some natural evolutionary reason. I don't know if maybe you understand evolution.
well, that's easy.
I'm not attacking anyone. I mean, it's very, we're throwing a lot of opinion on stuff too. Whereas I'm saying is where do we stop? If not to intervene, what would the natural course be?
Well, there is no natural course when humans are involved because we have changed the environment. Animals aren't going extinct because cheetahs are picky.
But let's come on, let's back off a little bit, because if we're honest, 98% of the species on this planet have already gone extinct, independent of us, right?
Of
Things
course.
go, but let's be very clear. Extinction is just something that life has to do.
But
If the
that's
things didn't go
usually happens
extinct,
with the global climate change.
So
I think we're splitting
Usually
hairs
an
at this point.
event that causes mass extinction, not just animals dying.
Why can't humans be an event? I don't understand how humans are any
think-
different than an asteroid. I just don't see. I think that's a weird line of thought.
So I think humans are the event. That's why I don't think we are superior. That's why I don't think we're also the only planet that has life. That's why I don't necessarily believe that they're.
In our solar system, you don't think there's life on Mars. You don't think Martians up there going
I mean,
Q 32 whatever.
no, but I think humans are the event. That's why I don't think we're necessarily superior to anything else. That's also why all these questions about what should we do with these animals and what should we do, it's all for our purpose. The reason why we as people keep these animals alive that look like us, the anamorphic kind of features, is because we relate to them, we care for them. We have this weird kind of not even a controllable thing to care more about a species that looks like us than to care about the worm that actually does great things for the environment, things like that.
Which was
But-
David Hume said that, by the way. So,
Really? Oh,
go ahead.
so we ask ourselves well, we should care about this because whatever. But in reality, it's all about for us as people, because the Earth itself is just going to keep going until the sun, explodes. And the
Yeah,
Earth is fine. Planet Earth is fine. It'll just keep changing and keep doing what it does. It's what are we going to do to keep our little existence going on and on and on? And should we keep our existence?
Or
going
can
on
we
and
even?
on
I think
and
the
on?
more interesting issue is, if we're an event like an asteroid, then it's already set. We are set. There's actually some interesting, this is a bit of a side note, but there's some interesting research done on probabilities and all those kind of things that suggests that humans might have been here multiple times. We only, because of our lack of being able to have empathy or whatever, sympathy, whatever you want to say, our natural movement is to destroy things. And who's not to say we haven't destroyed things over time? Lots of research to support it, that there's an apex in intelligence we can't get past because we'll destroy ourselves before we become too intelligent. So these ideas that we get smarter over time, which I think is debatable on its face, but that argument that we get smarter over time, the claim is that someday we'd be smart enough to be able to take care of all these issues. And the argument is no, we'll always destroy ourselves before we reach that point because we can't, that point's too far, basically. So.
I think that's a little sci-fi.
This is grounded in actual
I know
research,
we
right?
found tools that were used to find 1 million years ago to hunt and kill animals in northern Africa.
Yeah, no, that's their argument. They're saying this is not the first game. We've played this game many times. Humans, by their nature, are going to destroy themselves before they ever unite in whatever this kind of glorious save the planet kind of thing, right? And the more than likely, if you're a betting person, you bet that we're just another species along the lines, and who knows what the next one looks like, right? But to think that humans will live forever, I think is grounded more in the stuff that those issues that humans are different. And there's nothing special. We're no special in other species, and we'll go extinct just like all the other ones. And why do we get hung up on that? Why is that a big deal?
Do you think that there's no difference between a human and a mouse?
Nope, not in terms of evolution, the things that we're talking about here, no. How can there be? Other than complexity, but
Right. So you don't think that the complexity of the human life is of value over a mouse?
this gets into that. Do you want to?
Well, kind of. So if anyone answers yes, I think human life is more valuable than whatever you want to say, a mouse, then you have to ask yourself, what does that mean? How does that mean I'm going to go about my life? And then if you think any human life is more valuable than any mouse or whatever it is, then you need to conduct your life living like that. And that's easy for people, I think, to do because we are people. It's way easier to be like, yeah, this person over there is way more valuable than that random mouse. or that random deer or whatever. But if you answer no, then you have to live your life like that. And that's very hard for people to do, because then it's the question of, well, what do I do? I mean, should I be able to kill an animal then to eat it if we're equal? You know, there's a lot of results that come from how you answer that question. And I think for me, I truly believe it's no. But to execute that in my life and to walk my daily life with that in my mind, it's very difficult to think my family and the people I love and care about and myself, I'm no more value than any creature out there. That is, I don't know if my brain or anyone's brain is really capable of processing that to the point where they live like that. But I do think the answer is no, because I agree. I don't think humans are anything special. I think we're just kind of this thing that happened on this planet, and we're here and hopefully live happy lives, and who knows if there's anything after. But like, I don't think that we were here for any purpose per se, other than just kind of happened. Evolution just happened to create us. That's my take.
So why do you care about the mouth or anything at all? I think we just kind of happen.
Right, and that, I mean, that's why I think it's very hard to say no and then live like that, because at least for me, I'm a very caring person. I just care about things, and I don't know why I care. I know that I just do. I mean,
But I think we have to be kind of clear here that caring doesn't mean allowing everything to live. I think those things get confused sometimes, right?
well, yeah,
caring can be putting things out of misery.
right. And
right?
like,
I mean,
if you care, what do you care about? Do you care about the ecosystem? Because if so, then you need to get rid of invasive species. Do you care about us on species level? Because then if you do, then that might mean the ecosystem itself is going to crash. I mean, there's tons of different levels of like environmental ethics itself and its own little thing.
and I want to argue that you can care deeply about animals and still kill them. This idea that they're somehow mutually exclusive, I think, is extremely problematic. I have a lot of background in American Indian thought, and they have the same relationship with animals that we're talking about here. They don't see this huge difference. They also have no problem killing them to eat them, but you just do it in a different way because.
Don't kill other humans.
Well, but there's different, and that's not true. But there's been people that have done that too. Yeah, and there's and I don't want to get into that because there's interesting things on cannibalism too. But Solvent Green. See those who don't get that. But the point simply being is that this idea that if I say that animals are the same as humans, that somehow I can't interact with them in the same way. I think that's just not necessarily true. I think what it boils down to is how it's done. So if I kill something out of respect versus killing something because I'm a redneck hick driving my truck and I want to run over something on the road because I can, those are very different things, right? So, but yeah.
But as humans, we have laws against running over people on the road. and killing
Well,
them.
man, we get into it. I mean, we can talk about, what I tell everybody, I tell the class, it's because we have our law is Kantian. Right?
Yeah, and our
Yeah.
laws don't mean justice. Like,
That's true too.
laws are in place with the idea that it should create justice, but clearly, if you're awake right now in this world, there's a lot of not justice happening because of laws in place.
Even past laws, blacks couldn't vote, women couldn't vote. I mean, these were legal laws, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the law and justice are clearly not.
And that's
can't
why,
equate the
like, when I was in the U and I was trying to figure out how can I do the best good in the world, I concluded that I need to go to law schools because I need to be in the system to change these laws so that they align with something that's more just for the public and for the greater good of just life. That's to be in a practicing field and to say I want to be in here to make change is one thing. And then there are lawyers that are in the practicing field because they just want to uphold whatever is currently current, and that's fine. That's what some do, is whatever law comes around, that's what we're going to follow. And then the next one comes and that's what we're going to follow. But the new laws happen by people making different ones, you know, pointing out where we're flawed in one area and trying to bring in a new, you know.
And most
thought
of the
process.
most of the laws that are most oppressive are overcome through illegal actions. I mean, the legalization of marijuana has all been through legal actions. It's all been people just saying, we're not going to follow the law, suck it. To the point where it's like, nobody's following the law, we might as well not have the law. But that's in it. So, I mean, law is an interesting thing, right?
What do you think about that argument? Is that in Colorado, those who were incarcerated before marijuana was legal for having possessed or sold marijuana were not released from prison?
Well, some
It's-
states took different
yeah,
approaches to that.
yeah.
So Oregon's doing it. Florida's actually getting ready to release people from marijuana laws without actually legalizing marijuana. So how crazy is that? But
I think like
It's fair.
it's Florida, so.
Yeah, the idea of legalizing a substance but not forgiving people for having that substance a year ago or 5 years, you know,
It's
it's
mind-boggling.
absolutely outrageous.
That's also why Oregon refused to accept, because their law originally was closer to Colorado's law, and they said, no, we're not, this is not what we're looking, this is too restrictive. And they actually voted it down, which was mind-boggling at the time, and now we see why, because they have the most progressive law by far, so I'm close.
Yeah, I find it very hypocritical to allow it commercially and now and still keep people incarcerated.
Well, it's gotten even worse. Now, the FDA has just released a THC substitute, or whatever the hell you want to call it. They say, oh, it's completely medically beneficial, but we're going to go ahead and still say the marijuana is not, because we can sell one as a pharmaceutical for tons of money. The other one you can grow in your own backyard, so no, fuck that. And then I don't even pardon my French on that one. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting kind of low on time. Any last second questions, if you want to?
What's your view on people who wanna like completely ban content and stuff like that?
I mean, I don't think we should be able to hunt wolves ever, but hunting, if you're going to eat the animal, then okay, because they're an apex species, because they keep the ecosystem functioning as how the ecosystem is set up to function.
And they're probably more intelligent than most 2-year-olds. So if I can go around shooting 2-year-olds and we can shoot wolves, I'll totally sign on to that one all day long. No, absolutely. I mean, that's.
So I think, would I ever pick up a gun and kill an animal myself? No.
Never say never.
No.
Never say never.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it should be completely outlawed. However, I don't think we should be creating our environments to favor their perfect ideal hunting zone or their perfect ideal fishing zone. Like, why do we stock lakes full of the fish that people want to fish? Well, what does that do for that body of water? Nothing. It does nothing for that as an ecosystem. All it does is make the fishermen happy, which is what the DNR does.
Which of course undermines the fishermen, because then the ecosystem collapses and the fish collapse on top of it,
Exactly.
and you're off and running.
Yeah.
So. And you blame the Indians. So.
And you blame what?
The Indians.
Yeah.
It's all their fault.
Well, I saw Antoine Troyer, I can remember we had him, teach up at Midgie. He was just posting things, but I didn't know this was true, that Wisconsin used to have a beer back in the 80s. They had to do with the tribal rights and things like that. It said equal rights or something. You guys, I'll bring the picture if you might remember that, but it was from the 80s. They sold beer that was actually, the whole idea was equal rights instead of tribal rights. And my thought was like, wow, I wish I didn't know about that back then. I would just gone to I'd follow somebody who bought that 6-pack home and camped out in their backyard and said, equal rights, bitch. I mean, what the hell? But anyway, any last second questions?
This is kind of a personal question, but before you knew that you were going to law school, if you knew from the jump, would you have changed your undergrad to be more successful in law school?
No. I don't think people that go to their undergrad and get a poli-sci degree or a communications degree or something like that are more set up to succeed in law school. I actually think the most successful people in my graduating class were people that had different backgrounds.
You mean personal background?
Different personal backgrounds, different educational paths. There are a lot of people who went to law school that went starting from undergrad, knew they wanted to be in law school, so they got their poli-sci degree and then went on and.
Poli-sci, you mean the slackers? The smart ones took philosophy, right?
I think there was one kid that had a philosophy degree that I remember.
One smart lawyer. Oh, yeah.
But I think the people that had different things in their lives and in their education were able to be more successful because they're just able to look at the the problems and the law differently. I mean, one guy was a former like professional dancer and had a degree in something, but then went to law school, and he was up there with me in the top of the class. The philosopher was, you know, I don't think that like what you do in your undergrad, yeah.
Yeah, study. I'll say this. I've been preaching this ever since I got my PhD. You study what you want as your undergrad. Your undergrad doesn't matter. I cannot stress this enough. I mean, it does in certain areas. Like there's a particular field, you know, nursing or something you're going into particular that is looking for something in particular. But if it's just a degree, last stat I looked at, this has been a few years, was 78% of people with BAs and BSs work outside of their degree. So they're working, they're just not working in their degree field.
Yeah.
That's why I find this rhetoric about trying to tie education to jobs one of the worst things that's ever come down the pipeline. Because now we're saying, oh no, it's not about you getting educated, it's about you getting a job. You know, if you're educated, you can get a job. That's kind of the point, right? So yeah, I find that kind of fascinating. But yeah, if you study what you like, you'll be successful.
Yeah.
And that's what it really boils down to. And if you go into grad school's not going to care what you studied in your undergrad necessarily. They're going to look at how good you did in your undergrad.
Yeah.
And if you're magna cum laude or summa cum laude or even cum laude, you're getting into grad school. If you're not, you're probably not. And that's just the law of the land, right? So that's why you should study as your undergrad what you like.
I mean,
Because what's more important as your undergrad is your grades, I would argue.
yeah, and I honestly avoided all things law up until I went to law school.
That's why.
Yeah, and I did well, and I'm practicing now, and I'm happy and successful and smart and in that area, you know, and that had nothing to do with what I took in undergrad.
Yeah, because that's, you know, your undergrad, college in general, I think, if it does its job well, it just teaches you how to think,
Yeah.
how to research, how to find information, how to put that information in a way that people can understand it, blah, blah, blah. Because once you understand the tools, it's like basketball. A professor used to say this, Mark Uno, so if he ever sees this. Mark Uno used to say, it's just like basketball. Fake only works because we all know the rules. We all play by the rules. If you don't play by the rules, then faking doesn't work, right? And that's kind of sense that what education is learning the rules. Once you learn the rules, you can break them. You can, in fact, they want you to break them. That's the goal. But you can't break what you don't understand, right? So you got to learn what you got to. So, Isaac Gillette, good friend of ours, one of the ex-inverse, says it was called treaty beer. Do you remember it? You remember treaty beer? So,
In Wisconsin?
I thought it was only Wisconsin, wasn't it?
That's where I grew up, so.
Do you remember that when they were doing that? Do
I do, yeah.
you want to say anything about that?
No.
Smart man in the room. All right, on that, we've run over our time. So I want to thank you all for coming. If we can get a round of applause. Woo! And thank you everybody on Facebook. We had a pretty good following on Facebook, actually. So, yeah, all right. Well, thank you all. Have a good weekend. Drive fast, take chances. We are going to go. Anybody wants to stick around? We're going to, if you're interested, we're going to have pizza. Or do you
Do they
have
have gluten-free pizza?
I don't know. We can go look. I was going to take her to Old Town for beer and pizza. If anyone wants to tag along, you're welcome to. So if they don't have gluten-free, we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I can't.
We can look online. Wait, it's 21st century. We can Google that. Or GTS, as my son's 14-year-old says. All right, thanks everybody. If GTS, Google that shit. Make sure you sign if you're from the online course. If you're from my intro course, just leave your envelopes, and that basically counts. So same thing. All right. Woo! That went pretty good.
Yeah.
I like this face. Let's see what's going on here.
How do you see 75 comments? Gee.
Oh yeah, they got a whole. They're running a whole thing down. I mean, Isaac and Brett are in here, so of course there's a huge conversation going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of got a conversation, and Gina said things. So, yeah.
Intro online would be the philosophy one, right?
Yeah. Well, they're both intro and ethics are both philosophy, but there's an intro online and ethics online.
So if I'm intro philosophy, it would be.
Sign that one. Yeah. Who are you?
I'm Clint.
Oh, Clint. Nice meeting you, Clint. All right.
Nice to meet you
It's
too.
nice to put faces with names. So.
That must be hard doing an online philosophy.
Especially when you suck at it.
I just couldn't do online like anything. I took an online art class from here, and it was awesome.
So here's what I will say, and I'll pretend he's not here.
Okay.
I'm not a good philosophy student. I don't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it when I started. It's incredibly difficult. However, I have learned, and that, I mean, to me, that's a big thing. So I'm struggling with it. I'm getting pretty decent grades, but it's one of the classes where I'm actually learning something as an adult student that I wasn't exposed to before. So
Yeah,
Wow,
for me, it's
sweet.
kind of cool.
Awesome.
yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate that. Well, that's philosophy usually, because if you haven't engaged philosophy in an academic setting, you more likely haven't engaged it. Because I'm trying to break that. I'm trying to bring philosophy out into the real world.
Well, I had no exposure to it, and the clips that you did online, some of them are kind of funny, and you say some funny stuff, and so you have a knack for breaking it down and making it a little entertaining. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I try.
it's yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks, man. All right, take care.
Are we to send you our summaries or?
I'll talk about that on class on Monday. So,
That was a really interesting talk.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Yeah,
Ken.
nice to meet you.
are you taking off?
Yeah, I got it. My girlfriend's having a meltdown.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's okay. She'll be fine.
Hey, so as of right now, there's only 3 people in American Mind, but I got the
What the fuck
okay.
happened to the 3 other people?
There's only ever 3 people.
I thought you said there's 6.
No, there's only 3 at the time. I think there was 3 in that and 3 in the other one. So
Definitely said 6.
Who was there?
Yeah, I was.
no,
there.
there's 6.
Definitely
There's
said
6 in the
I
critical
think I-
thinking course.
Yeah.
That might have been it.
Okay.
There's 6 in the critical thinking course, only 3 in the American Mind course. So the critical thinking course is probably going to run, but the American Mind course probably isn't. But I got the okay to do the independent study,
I'm definitely down.
so I can have up to 4 people in independent study.
Mhm.
After that, it turns into something else. So,
So you need 2 more people to sign up.
no, because I can do it with 1. I can do it with just him. I'm just saying we have 3 more space. If there's 3 more people that are interested, we can do it with 4.
Yeah.
And then if we have 4 or 3 even, then the idea is with the new podcasting systems, we'll run it through this podcasting system.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. It's fine.
I completely forgot my envelope.
That's okay. I know.
You guys have fun getting pizza and stuff. And yeah, it was really interesting meeting you.
thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
I actually want to get your view on like subsidies. You're talking about like oil subsidies. Do you think that people should do subsidies for things like renewable energy? Because personally, I'm against all subsidies. I don't think that government should be paying for anything.
I mean, so the renewables do have some subsidies, but if you were to compare it with what the oil has, it's like a penny to thousands. And